Welcome to Kramer Says. Kramer Says. Be part of the show at CramerSez.com. Interact on Twitter at CramerSez. Now, Kramer Says.
Welcome. My name is Kramer. This is the Kramer Says podcast. We are Kramer Says Live right now. You can follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. I guess we're actually up everywhere today. I guess YouTube decided to give me my account back for a while and broadcast to y'all. So if you want to watch us on YouTube and interact on YouTube, it's available tonight. Well, we don't know if it's going to be available tomorrow or not. Taking your calls tonight at some point. Anytime you want to call, go ahead and feel free to jump in, but you can call us at 877-619-3899, and you can always get the Kramer Says podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Okay, with that being said, we've got some internal housekeeping to do. You may or may not know that I've been one of the last guys of all the people on social media to jump in on the merch bandwagon because I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do merch just to have merch available, just to make money or whatever. I wanted it to have a purpose. And so we found that purpose. And that purpose is CramerSez, the app. We're working on it right now. We've spent about as much money as we can on it. Would love for you guys to jump in and help us out. And you'll get a t-shirt or you'll get a hat or a cup or something in addition to that. So you can get all of that at CramerSez.com. If you don't have an account, go set yourself up an account. It's free. It's a social media platform, free speech and so on, CramerSez.com. Now, if you don't want to do that, but you still want to help out, you can do that. We're setting up the merch store as well on the website, CramerSezApp.com. So if you haven't been there to check out what we're doing, go check that out, CramerSezApp.com, CramerSezApp.com. Go check it out. And here in the next few days, we'll have the merch store there as well. There's been a lot going on in the last couple of days, and in particular, the last 7 to 10 days. And for those of you not paying attention, too busy at work, running the kids around and so on, we are in a very dangerous point in our nation's history. That's not hyperbole, that's a fact. Because what's happening now is that even the Democrats are starting to say, hey, listen, we got a problem here. They're starting to realize, hey, listen, it ain't what we thought it was going to be. So let's go back to what happened yesterday, if you don't mind. I think it's interesting that tons of people have all kinds of reasons as to why Tucker Carlson was fired from Fox News yesterday. There's only one reason. One, money. Big pharma money. Newscast around the country, in particular national newscast, 70% of them, 70% of the newscast in our nation where we're supposed to get our news, the information we're supposed to rely on so we know what's going on the planet. Yeah, we're supposed to be able to rely and trust on that, but we can't because 70% of all newscasts are sponsored by Big Pharma. Do you ever wonder why the newscast wouldn't talk anything? They wouldn't talk shit about the vaccines. They won't look into it. They won't do real journalism because it'll hit them in the pocketbook. That's easy money. That Big Pharma money is easy money. So no, they're not going to do anything that's going to harm that. That's why Tucker Carlson is gone. That and January 6th. You see, Big Pharma and January 6th, those are the third rail because they've told so many lies over the last several years that if we really get into it and we really start looking at it, we'll realize, the American people will realize, they've been hoodwinked. They've been lied to from top to bottom. And the mainstream media, well, they've just been raking in the cash left and right. The reason that Tucker Carlson was fired, in my belief, was this interview right here that he did with Robert Kennedy Jr., where Robert Kennedy Jr. is talking about what he's going to do when he runs and what he thinks the problem with America is right now. Listen carefully, and you'll hear what they say here. They put Big Pharma on the ropes. Listen closely.
And we are honored to have him on our show tonight. He joins us now. Bobby, thanks so much for coming on. So you are, of course, being dismissed as a vaccine nut, but watching your announcement today, it wasn't about pharma even so much as it was about America's place in the world and what do we do about it. If you wouldn't mind summarizing for our viewers where you think we are and what you think we ought to do.
Well, I gave a long speech, Tucker, and thank you again for having me on.
Of course.
And for that very kind of an introduction. I think that the general theme of my speech was this corrupt merger of state and corporate power. which is turning our country into a corporate kleptocracy, into a system of socialism for the rich, and this kind of a cushy socialism for the rich, and this kind of brutal, merciless capitalism for the poor. It keeps us in a state of war. It bails out banks at the same time that last month, the United States government told 30 million people it was cutting their their food stamp checks by 90%. It took 15 million people off of Medicare. The same month, it gave $300 million to the Silicon Valley Bank and tapped up the cost of the Ukraine war to $113 billion. We're sending $113 billion to the Ukraine. The entire budget of EPA is $12 billion. The budget of CDC is $11 billion. We have 57% of American citizens could not put their hands on $1,000 if they have an emergency. A quarter of our citizens are hungry. So we're cutting welfare and food stamps by 90%. And we're bailing out the bankers. We're paying for a war that, we can't afford. And with the way that we do this is by printing money. We've printed 10 centuries of money in the last 14 years. And that causes the inflation, which raises food prices, which is a tax on the poor. Oh, we've raised food prices for basic foods like chicken, dairy, and milk by 76% in the last 2 years. And now we're cutting people's food stamps and bailing out banks the same month. It doesn't make any sense. And we need to get rid of this kind of corporate control of our government. It comes from our democracy is devolving into kind of a corporate plutocracy.
I would think that what you just said, and I'll just be honest, I agree with most of it. But even if I didn't, I would think, boy, that's a really interesting thing to say. You have a coherent worldview. You've written a lot of books on these topics. You've clearly thought about it. You're not in it for the money. So don't these issues deserve a wide hearing before the public entering a presidential year? It seems to me that they do.
I would think they would, and particularly the issues of war. And, my son went over and fought in the Ukraine. As I said today, I think people, the major doyens, sort of diplomatic, the most respected diplomatic gurus like Henry Kissinger and Jack Matlock and Larry Wilkinson have all said the Ukraine war is a huge problem for our country because from a geopolitical standpoint, it's driving the Russians close to the Chinese, which is the worst thing for us. But we're there for the right reasons because we have tremendous compassion for the Ukrainian people and the illegal invasion, the brutality, and also their valor and their courage. My own son was serving over there. He joined a special forces unit as a machine gunner. He fought in the Kharkiv offensive. Americans care about the underdog. They care about that kind of suffering. But the question is, why are we in the Ukraine? Because Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, said that we're there to exhaust the Russians. President Biden has said that we're there to deplatform, to depose Vladimir Putin. And if that's why we're there, and we're killing a lot of Ukrainians as pawns in a proxy war between two great powers. Here's one last thing I would say. Nobody talks about this. There's 14,000 Ukrainian civilians who have died, but 300,000 troops. The Russians are killing Ukrainians at a 7-to-1 to 8-to-1 ratio. They cannot sustain this. What we're being told about this war is just not true.
No, it's not true. And I would hope, despite the fact you criticize their advertisers, other media outlets would have enough respect for our country and for its voters to give what you said a hearing, because I think it's really important. And we're, again, grateful that you came on our show tonight. You're always welcome. Bobby Kennedy Jr., thank you.
Thank you very much, Tucker.
There you go. That's what got Tucker fired. That video right there. Because now what it exposes is that on the left, in the Democrat Party, there are people that do not align with what is going on in Ukraine or in Washington, D.C., that there's other viewpoints, that you can have a conversation, you can have a debate. Keep in mind that the DNC, the Democrats, have decided that they're not going to have any debates of their candidates running for president. I'm going to say that again. Democrats, the DNC, has decided that it's in their best interest not to have a debate of the ideas for the Democratic caucus. Democrats don't need to debate the issues anymore. They figured it all out. They've got it taken care of. They've got it aligned. No reason to talk about it. What they're doing to the Democrats, their own constituents, is what they want to do to the rest of the nation. No debate, no conversation, no ability to talk to each other and have a talk with each other and see if we can fix the problems in our nation. No, that's a bridge too far. What they would rather do is they would rather go to the Senate floor. These powerful elite men and women, they would rather go to the Senate floor, the picture, the what do you call it, the symbols of power, and be very rhetorical in what they want to say about the nation and point out the issues that they think are important. That's what the Senate floor used to be for, but what they're using it for today is to call for the censorship of American voices. For the first time in American history, at least my understanding in my life, I have never seen a politician ever go to the floor of the House or the Senate and actively call for a journalist or a reporter or a host or whatever else to be silenced. We saw that with Chuck Schumer.
Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television.
That right there, Chuck, is debatable on its own merit. Really? How much cable TV do you watch? You ever seen the Real Housewives? You ever seen any of those shows? What about RuPaul's drag show? That's pretty disgusting. The idiot continues.
With contempt for the facts, disregard of the risks, and knowing full well he was lying to his audience. Now,
that's a claim that no one else knows but Tucker Carlson. Now, some people say that, well, he doesn't like Trump and he doesn't agree with everything that's going on in the air, but that doesn't mean that he was lying to the American public, because what he did is he showed imagery that countered what the narrative of the January 6th committee was. That's what Tucker Carlson did. He said the king has no clothes. That's what he told the American people. That's what he showed. And what he promised was, I'll show you more tomorrow night. I'll show you what really happened on the inside of the Capitol. I'll show you what they refused to let you see. I'll give you that. And this was the response from Chuck Schumer, to go to the Senate floor and demand that a journalist and the work of journalism be silenced, because it was going to make him and his buddies look bad.
Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection.
He never said that. Not one time did Tucker say that. That's what you want the people that are listening to your squeaky little old man voice to hear. That's not what he said. He showed the evidence. He allowed people to make up their own minds. He didn't say that. He didn't say it was a walk in the park on January 6th. For those of us that were there that day, we know what happened. You, sir, know what happened. The lie has been spread across the mainstream media. The big lie is that the crowd was all there to take over the government. There's no fucking way that 1 million people holding one building in one city can take this nation over. Think about it for a moment, people. It's impossible. This argument about insurrection is a false flag. It didn't happen. But that doesn't matter, because Chucky's going to go continue to lie anyway, because he's scared shitless. He's scared of a Donald Trump in 2024. That's what you guys have to keep in mind. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of Trump more than they are of you, because they know what'll happen once he takes office.
By diving deep into the waters of conspiracy and cherry picking from thousands of hours of security footage.
Cherry picking? Just showing you what happened? Showing you that the January 6th committee said that Josh Hawley was running from the crowd and that he was doing it by himself, and what a coward. That was a lie. Josh Hawley was one of the last to run out. He brought up the rear. He was protecting people's rear as the Democrats ran in front of him. The Republican was the last out. That's what really happened. That's the real image. They don't want you knowing that. They don't want you seeing that. They don't want you knowing the truth. That's why they won't release the footage from January 6th. That's why the Democrats wouldn't release it. I'm calling on Kevin McCarthy right now to release it all. Let us be the judge of it. Let our eyes, unfettered by media or politics, see what happened. Then we can determine for ourselves if you or the Republicans are the threat to our democracy. That's the next series we're going to get into, by the way, is what is the democracy? We're going to start asking Democrats to describe what the democracy is. They don't understand that we're a constitutional republic. I know I'm tired of hammering this to death, but they like to cry democracy, democracy, democracy. He's going to say it here. He's going to say it in the next clip. A threat to our democracy. They don't even know what it is, folks. Because if they really knew what it was, they wouldn't say it because it makes them sound stupid. But not to their constituents. Because their constituents are ignorant of the facts. Schumer continues.
Mr. Carlson told the bold-faced lie that the Capitol attack, which we all saw with our own eyes, was somehow not an attack at all.
It wasn't. No attack. It was a protest. It was a peaceful protest. How do I know it was peaceful? No buildings got burned. No private businesses or entities got looted. And the only people that got killed were killed at the hands of the police. That's how I know it was peaceful. Because mostly peaceful protests, well, they include arson, looting, rioting, and tons of people dead or injured on both sides. That didn't happen on January 6th, Chuck.
He tried to argue it was nothing more than a peaceful sightseeing tour.
That's not what he said. You're putting words in his mouth. That's a lie.
Can you imagine? A nonviolent demonstration, a perfectly fine and appropriate instance of people expressing their opinion.
Well, yeah, considering what we have seen in the last 7 years. Considering what we've seen in the last 7 years, here's what's interesting about January 6th that most people don't understand. When the mayor issued the curfew, I think it was for 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever it was, the streets were cleared by 7 o'clock. There was nobody in the streets turning over cars, setting them on fire, setting businesses on fire, smashing windows, smashing glass, breaking shit. No, everybody was at their hotel room. And then do you know what the police did? The police came along in certain hotels and locked the fucking doors. That's what the Capitol Police did in D.C. I don't recall that being in the Constitution, that the police have the authority to lock you in your hotel so you can't leave. Did you know that happened? Yeah. It didn't happen at my hotel. It happened at a hotel down the street. Capitol Police came in and locked the fucking doors. But Chuck won't talk about that. Chuck won't talk about how our constitutional rights are continually being threatened on a daily basis. He has no fucking idea because he's the one doing it.
I, so many others who were here in the Capitol, and millions of Americans are just furious with Tucker Carlson and Kevin McCarthy today. Many of my staff were here at the Capitol on January 6th.
Okay, I'm going to stop him right there because I know how this goes from here. Chuck's going to give you a OAC or a Joe Biden or a Hillary Clinton story about how close they were to danger. And people were calling him out. They were calling him out by name. Let's go get him. That's why they won't show you the footage. They don't want you to see that footage. Because it'll counter everything that they've said. It'll show them for the liars that they really are. Not just to us, but to their constituents. Now, their constituents will give them room, give them latitude. I refuse to, because they're liars. And they're dictators. We're going to get into that here in just a moment. But listen carefully to what he says here.
Their lives were put in danger.
In danger.
As were the lives of many of my colleagues, as well as police, maintenance staff, reporters, countless others.
Their lives were in danger from a ton of people with no firearms, being protected by people with firearms. Chuck and his group, Chuck Schumer and his group, Nancy Pelosi, all of them, they were surrounded by armed guards. Tell me how many armed guards were shot that day. Tell me how many people with guns were shot that day. Tell me how many people who came to the protest that day, how many brought their guns and exposed them and said, okay, game on, motherfuckers, let's take over the government, and they started shooting. You see, that's how you take over a government, is with firearms. That's why they want your gun. But Chuck won't talk about that. No, the only people that were killed that day were killed at the hands of the police. I'm going to say again, I didn't agree with what happened. When things turned sideways, I left. I didn't participate in any activities that were violent because that's not why I was there. I was there to redress my grievances against the people in that building, which I have a right to do. It's my fucking building. It's your fucking building. He acts like it's his. Pelosi acts like it's hers. It's not. It's the people's house. It belongs to us.
At one point, I was within 30 feet of the rioters.
Here we go.
One of them, I was told, shouted out, "Let's get him," before my detail pulled me away, and we ran in the other direction.
Now, last night I talked about this. Can you imagine Chuck Schumer running? I'm almost 60 years old, and based on how I've seen Chuck Schumer move, I think at 60 years old, I could track that little fucker down. So this story about they're 30 feet away, they said, let's get him, and they outran the crowd? Bullshit.
To say January 6th was not violent is a lie pure and simple.
I agree. That's the only thing that he said so far that I agree with. Yes, it was violent that day. I did not agree with what happened. But why did it happen? He's going to talk about it. Why did it happen? He's going to mention why it happened and gloss right over it.
I don't think I've ever seen a primetime cable news anchor manipulate his viewers the way Mr. Carlson did last night.
By showing them the truth. By showing them what actually happened. By showing them the footage that you and your committees, you and your minions refuse to show the American people. By the way, that's our footage. It doesn't belong to you, Chuck. It doesn't belong to Nancy. It doesn't belong to the White House. It belongs to we the people. We paid for it. That's our shit. Stop acting as if we're a threat for wanting to see it.
I don't think I've ever seen an anchor treat the American people and American democracy with such disdain.
Well, you've never watched CNN then.
And he's going to come back tonight with another segment. Fox News should tell him not to. Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, tell Carlson not to run a second segment of lies. You know it's a lie. You've admitted it's a lie.
That doesn't matter. I don't care how many people at Fox News think that what happened in 2020 was a lie. I don't care. It doesn't matter how many people at Fox News think that what happened in 2020 is a lie. I don't care. Do you care? Do you care about the opinions of the talking heads, the bubble heads at Fox News? The ones that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not millions a year, to regurgitate whatever they're told in the teleprompter in front of them? Do you care about what they say? I don't. I was there that day. I saw what happened. I was with friends on election night. I saw what happened. To stop and not to talk about everything that happened in 2020 and not look at what happened in November. To look at what happened in November at the election and to say that, well, that has nothing to do with January 6th. You're full of shit. It had everything to do with the election. Everything about November had everything to do with January 6th, and everything about January 6th had to go back to the election in November. Our voice had been stolen. It fell on deaf ears. We went to courts. We went to judges. It fell on deaf ears. We did the one legal thing that we have as people left. We did the one thing that we had left to us. What was that? To go scream and yell at you, to go protest you. Did it go too far? Well, Chuck's still in office. AOC's still in office. Nancy Pelosi's still in office. Biden's still in office. So was it really an insurrection? In a nation that has as many guns as we have, was it really an insurrection? On TikTok, there's the character, I can't remember what it's from. It's from Netflix. But he goes, really? Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that, Chuck? Are you sure that it was really an insurrection? Really? Because nobody told me, hey, listen, we're overthrowing the government today. I went there to redress grievances against my government because I thought my voice was stolen in 2020. I thought my voice and my vote was stolen by the minions that this motherfucker runs with. That's why I was there. I wanted to make my voice heard. I wasn't there to harm police. I wasn't there to break into a building. I wasn't there to do any of that. And even if I was, would it have made a difference if I had gone into the building? Would it have made a difference? Would the government have felt any more threatened if I had walked into the building than the fact that I didn't? No. Because I don't have the ability to overthrow the government. I was there in a winter coat. That's it. No gun, no grenades, no bombs. I didn't have any F-16s and AR-15s or M-16s. I didn't have any of the weapons of the military. I didn't have any of that on me. How the fuck were we supposed to overthrow the government and we were unarmed citizens, Chuck? They'll never talk about that. And if you talk about what happened in 2020 and in 2019 and in 2018 and 70, all the way back to the inauguration of Trump. Remember when they inaugurated Trump, D.C. burned. That wasn't an insurrection. The only reason what happened on January 6th is an insurrection is because it's politically convenient. That's the only reason.
And Speaker McCarthy is every bit as culpable as Mr. Carlson. Speaker McCarthy's decision to share security footage with Fox looked like a mistake from the very beginning. But after last night, it looks like a disaster. Speaker McCarthy has played a treacherous game by catering to the hard right. He's enabled the big lie and has further eroded away at our precious democracy. When people don't believe elections are on the level.
Here we go. Why were we in D.C.? Why were we in D.C.? We didn't need Fox News to tell us. They don't even believe it. They think what you call the big lie is a big lie. They don't believe us. And they don't care. There's far too much money to be made just to look the other way. Move on. Pretend that 2020 never happened. Schumer wants his constituents to get in the streets to fight us because we want to get to the bottom of what happened in 2020. We cannot have a free and fair 2024 with finding out what happened in 2020. And that happens by you raising your voice. People keep saying, well, what can we do? What can we do? Show the fuck up. I can't say this loud enough. We are in the final days of Rome, folks. This is it. Have you ever seen an empire collapse? Have you ever seen a society collapse? This is what it looks like. When they can start justifying fucking your kids. And you're silenced into submission because you don't want to lose your job. You don't want to be canceled. You might lose your TikTok account if you speak out. This is what the fall of a civilization looks like. When the laws don't matter anymore. When the criminals are, well, they're the ones that are cared for most. The victims, fuck you. There's a creator on TikTok that made a great video, and he's right. He's getting held up. So he pulls out his own gun, and then the New York State DA comes in and jumps on him and says, what are you doing? You can't do it like that. There's all kinds of rules in self-defense. They would rather give fair treatment to the oppressor than to us. Schumer continues.
That's the beginning of the end of this bold experiment in democracy that is going.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in one more time. He's right. When we don't trust the elections, that's the end of it. It's like when I played, I'm sure you've done this as well. There are certain people that you don't play poker with. There are certain people that I don't play Monopoly with because they're cheaters. My entire life, they've cheated. Since I was a little kid. my brother was a cheater. He cheated. My dad cheated at Monopoly. I never cheated. I wanted to play it fair because that's how you know who the real winner is. If you cheat, you're not the real winner. You're a cheat. Cheats never win. They may get the prize, but they're not the winner. Just ask Riley Gaines. She feels cheated. Why? Because they didn't play fair. They didn't play by the rules that she had had to participate through her entire life. If you don't think that what Chuck Schumer is doing right here and what he's saying right here is on the same par of what just happened to Riley Gaines, you're insane. If you can't see the big picture, if you can't see how it's all falling apart, they're scared shitless. That's why he went to the Senate floor. That's why he did what no senator had ever done before. That's why he did what no majority leader had ever done before. He called for the censorship from the Senate floor of an American voice. He told an American company, shut him the fuck up. And Fox knew what to do because that second airing never happened. The airing that was supposed to happen Wednesday night didn't happen because of this speech from this man right here. A government official stepping forward and calling for the censorship of information that will make him and his party and the deep state look bad. They don't care. They don't care. I've been saying it for the longest time, folks. We've got a problem at the southern border. Little 7-year-old girl, they found 67 different DNA matches in her body. That means that she had been raped by 67 different men. A 7-year-old. They don't care. We've got fentanyl crossing across our border like crazy, killing thousands a month, over 100,000 a year. They don't care. They don't care. We've got inflation through the roof. We've got a collapsing dollar. They don't care. They're covering their asses. This is what Chuck would rather do than work on those issues. He'd rather come to the floor and say, hey, listen, you better get that Tucker Carlson under control because he's going to make us look bad.
Gone on for more than 200 years. It's all the more shameful because Speaker McCarthy knows precisely what kind of customer Mr. Carlson is. He's not surprised by this outcome. What a low point for Speaker McCarthy. What a low point for Fox News.
Let's go. That's it right there. Listen to that. The hyperbole. We're disgusted. We're tired of this. You guys are a threat to democracy. Okay, well, just let us see what happened in 2020. Nope, that's a threat to democracy as well. We can't let you see what happened in 2020. All we want to do is see what happened in 2020. Would you let us see what happened in 2020, please? We just want to see what happened in 2020. Can we do that? No, you're a threat to democracy. Well, we just want to see what happened in 2020. And now that you mention it, we'd also like to see what happened in 2022 in Arizona and these other 6 battleground states that all had issues in 2022, because it doesn't give me much faith in the fact that coming 2024, that they're going to have their act together. Let me remind you folks that we live in a beautiful, technically advanced age. And when I was a kid, back in, I remember the first election that I watched, my mom and dad let me stay up. I think it was 72 or 74. Maybe in 72. I can't remember. It was some Republican convention or convention. It may have been a Democrat. I don't remember. But they let me stay up because they always dropped the balloons. That was my first election where I got to watch the balloons drop. I thought that was so cool. That's how far back I can remember. Now, here's the thing about it. When they had the election, this is back in the 70s, way back. You know, bell bottoms, the big fros, right? Everybody's a love child of some sort, or they were metering out of that and going into being business people because that's where all the hippies went. The hippies, the problems that we have today, all came from the hippies. All the boomers, it's their problem. We're still feeling the wrath of the boomers who wanted to fuck everything that moved in the 60s. And then they got businesslike in the 70s. In the 80s, they made a ton of fucking money. And then they decided, we're going to rule the planet. We'll come in and we'll show everybody that we're better at everything and we'll tell you what you can and can't do. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, after those elections in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, and even the early 2000s, we knew who the person who had been picked was by the end of the night. 11, 12 o'clock, we knew the count. We knew everything. And now it takes weeks to get a count in? Well, Kramer, COVID. You lose the ability to count if COVID's in the air? Really? I don't know if you've ever read the book. There's a book called Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. And Hillary Clinton wrote her dissertation on that book. There's an idiot on social media that's making stupid videos about me, and he goes to my Twitter account and says, "Look at all these people that Kramer's following," and he shows the list of all the people that I'm following. I follow Chuck Schumer, I follow Hillary Clinton, I follow Antifa, I follow every person that I consider to be a potential threat. I want to know what they're saying and what they're doing. That's just the way I am. That's called The Art of War. Sun Tzu wrote that. Use your enemy's tools and techniques against them. Use their weapons against them. When they're talking, be quiet. Let them speak so that you'll know their truth. These are all things from The Art of War. This other book, Rules for Radicals, is an outline of how to handle political situations, how to attack your enemy, how to be a radical. Book's been around for a while. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's a short read. It doesn't take much. But one of the things, and you may have heard it from time to time, is that Saul Alinsky says very clearly, paint your enemy with the crimes you've either committed or are about to commit. Blame them for it. And that's exactly what Chuck Schumer is doing in this one right here.
I want to get to the president's visit to Capitol Hill in just a moment. But first, I want to ask you about this letter that you and the House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries sent to Fox Corporation chair Rupert Murdoch about the lies he admitted his network spread on the air in a newly revealed deposition. You wrote
And by the way, lies is a new word for difference of opinion, just so we're clear.
Your letter, quote, Fox News hosts have continued to peddle election denialism to the American people. We demand that you direct Tucker Carlson and other hosts on your network to stop spreading false election narratives and admit on the air that they were wrong to engage in such negligent behavior.
Okay, that letter that came from Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer to a publication are two politicians that are demanding a private American censor, or a private American citizen be censored, be silenced. That's what Jeffries and Schumer are saying there. As public officials, we're demanding that you do this. Do you know what that word demand means? That word demand means you got to do it or you're going to suffer consequences. It's just shy of being a command. I demand that you do this. I'm a citizen. I'm not a subject. Chuck Schumer doesn't have the authority to demand shit out of me, you, or anybody else. He's a citizen just like you and I are. He just has a job. That's it. I keep telling you people, politicians are no different than you or I. Their job is politics. That's it. They have no authority over you or I. None. None whatsoever. There's no special thing that they have in their pocket that gives them authority over you and I, because there's a piece of paper sitting in the National Archives that says they don't have that authority. I have the authority. I have all the authority. I'm a citizen. I have more rights than the government does. The government has no rights. The government is rightless. It has no rights. I have all the rights. You have all the rights. But if you refuse to stand up for those rights, they don't exist. If you keep doing what people are saying, and I've seen this throughout social media over the last couple of days, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Nobody's going to do anything. Oh my God, what's going to happen? It's called noncompliance, and it starts at work. Listen. I don't know how to put this, folks. I'm gonna spell it out for you. There's this romanticism in this country that we're going to have 1776 again. That shit ain't going to roll. Never going to happen. We've got mountains on one side of us, we've got mountains on the other side of us, and we got everything in between. And you cannot hold this country by holding a few cities. Not going to happen. So this romanticism about a civil war in this nation ain't going to happen at all. No, what'll happen is you'll sit in your lazy boy or on your front porch or in your car looking at your phone, and they will take your freedoms one by one because you refuse to stand for them. You'll bitch about it. You'll moan about it. But you won't do anything about it. How do I know? Because you didn't stand up to your boss at work. If you won't stand up to your boss at work, you won't stand up to the government. If you won't tell your boss, no, I'm not getting a medication to keep this job, you won't stand up to the government. If you won't tell your boss at work to go fuck off, that no, you're not participating in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, you think it's stupid and you think it's racist, if you won't do that, then you don't have the balls to step up to your government. Make sense? The idiots continue.
So, Senator, what are you prepared to do if Fox ignores your demand for an apology?
Well, let me say this first, John, and thanks for asking. The threat to our democracy may be greater than it ever has been before.
Okay, I'm going to agree with Chuck here. Now, we're not going to use the word democracy. We're going to use constitutional republic, but I agree with him. Our nation, our republic is under threat on a daily basis. And it doesn't have anything to do with January 6th. It doesn't have anything to do with Tucker Carlson. It has with these people bastardizing the judicial system against everybody. We'll get into that here in a moment, too.
Because when people doubt that the elections are for real.
Seriously? You hear what he keeps saying? If the people doubt that the elections are for real, you mean we can't have a conversation about the security of our elections? Is that a threat? Is looking at 2020 and saying, listen, we had some major problems. Let's get these cleaned up so it doesn't happen again. Is that a threat? Is it a threat to say that something happened in 2020? We're not quite sure what it was, but we should work together, left and right, to figure out what happened and ensure that it never happens again and come forward and be transparent about it. And if there was cheating, then we say, listen, there was cheating here and we get it taken care of. And if there wasn't cheating, if it was a misunderstanding, then we're all on the same fucking page. But to hide it and say that, no, you can't see it. We're putting it behind the secret wall for 100 years. You can't see it. Doesn't lend much credence to the idea or to the statement that that election was free and fair. It definitely was not transparent.
Democracy is on edge. After all, the wellspring, the core, the heart of our democracy is that we trust the elections.
I agree with you 100%, Chuck. We don't. We don't trust in them because you won't allow it to be transparent. Every time we try to look into it, you put a roadblock in our way. You stop us. That's why we don't have any faith.
And, I worry that if this erodes, our democracy will erode, and my children and my grandchildren will not grow up in the grand democracy that gave me, the son of an exterminator, the opportunities that I have had.
You're absolutely right. I agree with you. I'm with you on all that. And it's not just your grandchildren. I'm 60 years old. I'm not growing up in the same democracy that you grew up in. You've bastardized it. You've ruined it. You've sold it to China. You've sold it to the highest bidder. Disgusting display of politics. And again, if you keep in mind, this right here is Rules for Radicals, Rule 101. Blame the other side for what you're doing. He's going to get into it here in just a moment. Listen carefully.
What caused this? Number one was Fox News and their commentators spread.
Nope. It had nothing to do with Fox. It had to do with the election of 2020. It had to do with the previous 4 years where we heard time and time again that Trump is an agent of Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. Then we find out everybody involved, including the FBI, including the DOJ, were involved with the lie. The big lie that Trump had a whore pee on him in a bed in Russia. All of that was a lie. Paid for by the DNC, put in motion by Hillary Clinton and her campaign, and supported by the DOJ and the FBI. The coup already happened. It's already here, folks. 2020 was the last gasp. That's what we had. If you don't stand now, if you don't start making your voices heard now, and we're going to talk about how to do that. Because everybody keeps asking how, but you've got to fucking do it. You can't stand back on your laurels. You can't stand back on your heels and say, well, that's too hard, Kramer. I don't want to do that. That's a pain in the ass. You're right, it is. What's more of a pain in the ass? Spending the rest of your life on your knees? Seriously? Come on, motherfuckers. Yeah, I know some people don't like my cussing. Well, we're at war. We're at war with the people in this nation that our founders told us about. Enemies both foreign and domestic. The problem is that our domestic motherfuckers have teamed up with the foreign motherfuckers, and they're in bed with each other. As you can tell, I'm pissed. I'm tired of it. I'm done. I'm not playing by their rules anymore. I play by my rules. I play by the constitutional rules. I play by the rules of right and wrong that were set in motion years ago before I was born. That's what I'm playing by. Because that's the rules of the nation of this game. The game of this nation. We know what the rules are. They keep changing. They can't change the definition. Yeah, here's how fucking crazy they are. They can't even tell you what a woman is. They want to tell you what democracy is. They want to describe what their system is, and they can't define a binary man or woman because they might get in trouble with their constituents. He's an intellectual and moral coward. They all are. But me yelling into this mic is not going to change anything. It's you. You taking action. You have power in your voice. You have power in your numbers. Mass non-compliance. That's how we do it, folks. We just stop doing it. If everybody in your company, especially if you're in a Fortune 500 company, if you start, you know who they are, the people in your company that don't agree with what's going on. If you start banding together and say, listen, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm tired of playing this game. That person over there is not any better or any worse off than I am. They're not any better at doing their job or any worse at doing their job because of the color of their skin. They're not any better or worse than I am because of what they suck or what they lick in bed. And that's what they're saying. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is going to cost you more money if you go buy a home. Your good credit is going to pay for their bad credit. Your good decisions, your good lifestyle is going to pay for theirs that was bad, poor choices. That's how it affects you directly. That's how this shit happens directly to you. But it's easier to sit back and blame somebody and not do anything. So, folks, they're not stealing your freedoms. They're not stealing them at all. You're giving them away. A right that you don't stand up to defend, a right that they take, and that's why these auditors, these First Amendment auditors that go from city location to city location, go to public property and wait for the police to show up and try to infringe on their constitutional rights. They do that for a purpose. There's a reason why they do it. Because the lies that this man is telling right here trickle down. And everybody's dumbed down because of what he says here. It's all a lie. And it doesn't have anything to do with the Constitution. You have to defend your rights. Because he will take advantage. Politicians are no different than children, little children. Not at all. They will take advantage of you every chance they get. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. If you give them a mile, they'll take the galaxy. They will do whatever they can. They're children. That's the way their brain thinks. It's up to you, the adult, to start making the decisions.
The big lie, day after day, night after night, hour after hour, week after week, year after year. They're the number.
Okay, so he's talking about the big lie. The big lie is about what happened in 2020. The Fox News was on the air saying the big lie over and over and over again. He didn't mention the big lies that we've been told since 2016. He didn't mention what the FBI did. He didn't mention what the mainstream media has done. All the lies they've told. The bending of the truth. Trump called all Mexicans racist. That's what he said. But that's what the average Democrat believes. In their brain, they believe that that's what Trump said. And if you tell them to go back and look at it, I know what he said. He's a racist. Chuck's not going to talk about that. He's not going to hold his side accountable for the big lies that they've been telling. The big lie that Hunter Biden's laptop was not his. Was that a lie? Well, we just said that it had all the earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. You could have just said you don't know. You could have kept your mouth shut. You made a decision You decided that you were going to come out and state 2 weeks before an election that there's no way that that could be Hunter Biden's laptop. And 17% of the electorate, well, they would have changed their mind if that had been the case. Tons of people back then saying, well, Hunter Biden doesn't matter. I'm not voting for Hunter. I'm voting for his dad. You ever heard of nepotism? How much do you know about the Biden family? Well, nepotism is like popping M&Ms around that house. Seems that they've been utilizing that tool for a long time. Nepotism has worked very well for the Biden family. Schumer continues.
Number one cause that there is such erosion in our democracy. And the other day, with the Dominion case and the depositions, we got a real breakthrough. We were told that the commentators like Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham didn't believe this stuff. And then finally, yesterday, it was revealed 2 days ago that Rupert Murdoch didn't believe it, number one, knew it was wrong, regretted that he didn't do anything about it.
Nope. Let's pump the brakes there a bit. You're in a deposition. You're going to get sued for hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. You're trying to lessen the hit on your company. I have a feeling that the Murdochs are going to say whatever they need to say to save some cash leaving their pocket. That's what I think is going to happen. Did they really believe it? I don't care. As I said before, I don't give two shits what Fox News personnel thinks. I know what I saw that night. What about you? Do you care what they think? Does it have any bearing whatsoever on what Americans should be able to say? No. That's the problem that we have right now. AOC today said that deplatforming works, talking about the silencing of Tucker Carlson. Deplatforming works. Deplatforming is just a fancy word for shut the fuck up, which is a very crass way of saying we censor around here. What Chuck is about to say here, and I want you to listen carefully because he said it twice now. And I'm a firm believer that when somebody says something more than once in public, and they say it so freely that they've thought about it, and this is the core of their being. I'm able to talk like this because I'm passionate about my rights and making sure that they're not infringed. I can talk very well about this subject because I'm very well versed in this area. I know what my rights are. He knows what your rights are, but he's going to make you believe that he and others like him have the authority to tell you to shut the fuck up.
Well, his regrets are not good enough. We need him to take the next step. And the next step is to tell the Carlsons, the Ingrams, and all these other commentators to stop spreading the big lie, to admit what they said was wrong, help restore some of the faith that we have lost in our democracy due to what their network's propaganda has put forward, so we can get it back.
You're not going to get it back. And the reason you're not going to get it back, Chuck, is simple. It's a lie. The big lie is that nothing happened in 2020. That's the big lie. The more I think about it, the more I realize the closer we are to the end of days. And I'm not talking biblical. I'm talking the end of days of our nation. If you read Atlas Shrugged, you realize that these characters are straight out of that book. Chuck Schumer is no different than the railroad men. The problem with our nation right now is twofold. The first one is that we allowed our schools to take civics out. They no longer teach the Declaration of Independence. Why would you teach rights to people? They might expect that those rights not be infringed on. And civics, how the system works. Who has what authority? Nancy Pelosi said the other day, she says, well, Trump will have his day in court to prove his innocence. That's not how it works, Nancy. And if you had taken civics, or at least passed it, not sucked your way through that class, I'm going to say it, I don't give a shit anymore. If she hadn't done, or if she had paid attention in that class, she would realize that that's not how it works. It's the state's obligation. Now, I'm tired of explaining this shit to people old enough, especially people older than me that should know these things. I'm tired of explaining it to them. I'm tired of explaining that we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. I'm tired of explaining it. I'm tired of explaining that that's a woman and that's a man. I'm tired of explaining it. I'm tired of explaining that you don't have the right to tell me what to do just because you feel offended. I'm tired of explaining it. Aren't you tired of explaining it? Are you done? Are you tired of it? Well, then you got to do what I'm doing. It starts with little things, folks. I enjoy it. It gives me great joy. I don't care how old they are. I don't care how young they are. If I see somebody in a store, I'm taking video of them with their goddamn mask on. We went through 2 years of the Karens coming after us. Oh, you're a science denier. You're a science denier. I'm not. I followed the science. I read the box. The box on the box said it doesn't do what you want it to do. So now I take videos of people and I ask them, why are you a science denier? The masks don't work. That's clear. The evidence is out there. Why are you a science denier? Well, Kramer, that's bullying. I don't give a shit anymore. I don't care. It used to be called public shaming. That's what we used to do to people. We used to hold them accountable. We used to say that this is the way that our culture, this is the way that our society works, and if you don't like it, get the fuck out. But now we've got a bunch of Karens in here that are in control, and they say, oh, no, you can't do that, mainly because what they've done is they've gone to these marginalized groups, and they said, listen, we'll treat you fine if you just give us your vote. Now, you can't speak up. You can't say anything. Just ask Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter did all the rioting and all the looting all throughout 2020. And then as soon as Joe Biden got into the White House, what did Joe Biden and what did the Biden administration tell Black Lives Matter? We got bigger fish to fry. Move the fuck on. They haven't been back, folks. Black Lives Matter kind of disappeared. What happened? Where are they? We don't see them in the streets anymore. We will. There's an election coming up. Same thing with Antifa. Meanwhile, this asshat has decided that he and his ilk, that they have the authority to tell private companies, private citizens, what they can and can't say.
And we're waiting to hear from Rupert Murdoch on that right now.
Look, Fox needs to reckon with the lies that it spread, and it may live.
Okay, now, by the way, that's rich coming from CNN, right? The lies that Fox News has told. Listen, I don't know if Fox News has been 100% transparent and truthful above the board on everything. I don't know. But I know that CNN hasn't. The hypocrisy.
Literally have to pay for the lies that it spread. But is it the role of government officials to demand that media organizations say things or tell media organizations what to put on their airwaves? Okay,
this is what I wanted to get to. Listen closely to what Chuck says here. He's going to try to soft shoe it. He's going to try and just kind of give you the rounded edges of it so you don't get cut, you don't get hurt by the hard edges. But what he's going to say is, yes, it's our responsibility to tell people who we don't like what they're saying to shut the fuck up.
Well, it's hardly the first time that people have said Channel 4 should have done this, the New York Times should have done that. That's not unusual. But what has happened here is, and John, very unusual. This is not simply telling them what to do. This is telling them, showing them that they have hurt our democracy probably in a way that no other actor made.
Well, nope. What happened in 2020 hurt our democracy. That's what hurt our democracy. That's what hurt our republic, is not being transparent with 2020. So you got to continue to cover up the lie that you told the American people, the lie that 81 million people voted for the potato that's currently in the White House.
With the exception of Donald Trump, who used them, has done. And so when it's that vital, I think we not only have a right to tell Rupert Murdoch and Fox what to do, but an obligation. And I hope people...
There you go. Not only the right, but the obligation to tell Rupert Murdoch what to do. That is a government official. That's a U.S. senator saying, fuck the Constitution, fuck your First Amendment rights. If it hurts us, we got to silence them. Folks, I said it today. Far too many of you are saying Well, I'll do something when they knock on my door. Let me explain where we are, motherfuckers. They're on your front porch. They just haven't knocked yet. You still have time to act. Because when they knock on your door, it's too fucking late. Chuck Schumer and his ilk, they don't give a shit. They don't care. It's power and money. And what we've learned is the love of fucking little kids. Nobody on the left will address Joe Biden continually sniffing the heads of strange children. He can't help himself. Besides lying, I don't know what she has a bigger problem with, a bigger issue with. He lied again today. Told a group of union people that his daddy or his grandpa had died just 2 weeks before he had in the same hospital. Total lie. It's a lie. It's not in any way, shape, form true. It's not true. They were born in two different cities, 2 years apart. I mean, Joe was born in, the grandfather was in a hospital. Oh, you get it. It's just confusing trying to tell the truth about Joe's lies because they're so interweaved. I think it's amazing that we're going into the third year of the Biden administration. All the information that was known about Hunter Biden prior to Joe getting elected. And I want to explain it to you, how it works. In 2016, we were told that Donald Trump had no chance of winning. Just a couple of days before the election, we were told in several publications, the polling showed that Trump was going to lose 99% to 1. He didn't even have a 1% chance of winning. That's what they were saying just a couple of days before. And sadly, far too many people in the FBI and the DOJ and other government officials around the country, other government offices around the country, they believe that lie. They believe that misinformation that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And so they acted accordingly. They started speaking the truth. They started getting ready because they were going to start destroying the information. They were going to start destroying the evidence. They didn't have to worry about it anymore. They were in charge. They're in power. We're going to sweep this all under the rug. And then it didn't happen. Oops. Folks, you can sit there and clamor all day long about how bad things are. And I'm going to say it, if you don't do something about it yourself, men like this will not only rob you of all your rights because you're too lazy to defend them, but they'll take the rights of your children. And what the Democrats have done is they've partnered, and it's not just Democrats, it's rhinos as well. Conservatism is the only thing that's going to save us, and that's not the GOP. Conservative values, not GOP values, conservative values. I don't care what walk of life you come from. Are you a conservative? Then we can be friends. Because I know that you're going to expect more out of yourself before you ever ask me for help. I know that you're going to do the work first before you demand that I come help you. That's the letter. That's what dictators and tyrants, that's the language that they use. I demand, I command. Schumer continues with his demands.
One end of the country to the other. We'll call up Fox and say, do what Leader Hakeem Jeffries and I asked for, which is stop the lies, say they were wrong, and report the news.
But we don't believe their lies. You've never answered the lies. That's the problem. We want transparency. We may be wrong. There may have been nothing that happened in 2020 that was wrong. We may be wrong. We may be incorrect. Show us. Show us that we were incorrect. Show us that we were wrong. Get the gratification of saying, we told you so, we told you so. But you haven't done that. You've hidden everything. I think it's interesting that Mike Lindell has put a $5 million bounty on anyone that can disprove what he said. Nobody's popped up for that $5 million. If I had the technical capability to disprove Mike, I would go do it just for the money. Nobody's done that yet. Isn't that odd?
You have a different way of reporting the news than someone else, fine. But lying is not part of that different way.
Well, that's bullshit, Chuck. We know that that's okay because, Obama reversed the Smith-Mudd Act in the Modernization Act, they said that propaganda is okay. I guess it's just the lies you want to tell. The government gets to spread only the lies they want to tell, not the lies that Fox News or me or anybody else. Just the lies that the government wants to tell, or CNN, or approved media outlets. They're the only ones that get to tell lies, according to the Smith Modernization Act. Is that what you're saying, Chuck?
Cannot be.
So the legal filing also reveals that Rupert Murdoch told the head of Fox News to help Republicans in the 2020 Georgia Senate runoff selections, help them in the runoffs in any way we can. That's a direct quote. So given that, and you still call Fox a news organization, but given that, do you think your Democratic colleague should appear on the channel?
Well, let me ask you, what was CNN doing during that period? What was MSNBC doing during that period? What were the other major news outlets around the nation doing? ABC, CBS, NBC, what were they doing? What about all of the publications, all of the websites, all of the social media platforms? What were they doing? Were they supporting Trump? No. In fact, it was just the opposite. Silencing dissent at every angle, every chance they got, they silenced our voices. I wish that we could go back when I was a kid and had the belief that our social media outlets and our news outlets and so on, well, they were apolitical. They didn't care. They just reported the facts. The only reporter that I know currently that I truly trust, and I don't know what side of the aisle she's on, I don't care. I trust her reporting, is Catherine Herridge. She was on Fox News. I think she's at CBS now. I don't know what side of the aisle she's on because she never tells you. She just gives you the information. That's it. She lets you decide. Those days are gone. Chuck continues.
Well, look, I leave it up to each one of them. I mean, putting the truth on Fox News always helps. But, you know, the way they portray it, it'll be 1 out of 50 commentators, and then they'll put some other liar up against them, and they'll do he said, she said. They never really do it fairly. But I don't have a problem if people want to go on. But they're way beyond that. And they're
So if you give your opinion counter to Chuck, you're a liar. If you say, I see things differently, you're a liar. What Chuck has already told you here, folks, is very simple. What he's told you is that if you're not part of the narrative that we approve of, you can't speak. If you don't say what we want you to say, you can't speak. We'll deplatform you. We'll take away your right to speak freely. There's a group of Republicans and a group of Democrats that are now calling for this is amazing to me. They want to call for a national zero trust policy, meaning that anybody who has an internet account of any sort would have to prove who they are before they could get online. Well, because you have the ability to pretend to be anybody online. Newsflash, you have the ability to pretend whoever you want to be anywhere in the world. Is my name really Kramer? You don't know that. Only I know that. Only my loved ones know that. Am I really from Indianapolis? You don't know. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm representing. No, it takes investigation to find out if that's true. But they don't want you. They don't want you knowing that. They don't want you talking about these things. They want you silent. Just accept the facts the way they are. When you don't have a voice, when you can't speak freely, and now they're talking about 15-minute cities and all these other bullshit things. Okay, so if you don't have a voice, you don't have the ability to practice the pursuit of happiness. If you don't have the right to travel and go where you want to go, there's a name for that. It starts with S and it rhymes with slaves. You get it yet? Shut the fuck up. Do as you're told. That's modern day slavery, folks. I've said it once before. I'll say it again. The coup happened in this country in 1963. It didn't happen in 2020. It happened in 1963. The FBI and the CIA, they've admitted to it. They played a role, a pivotal role, in the assassination of JFK. That's when, if you look at everything in our nation, that's where all the norms, the Make America Great Again, that's where they all went out the window. It started in 1963 because Kennedy was going to root out, he was going to do the exact same thing. He was going to drain the swamp. He was going to take the CIA and abolish it and scatter their ashes to the four corners of the globe. They assassinated him for it. And then they hid the information for 65 years. Through a FOIA request, it was revealed that they played a pivotal role. Now, I want you to keep in mind that these same government officials, same offices, different people, but same offices, today are demanding that the information about COVID and all this other stuff, they were wanting it to be hidden for 75 years. Why? Because they have something to hide, folks. They have something to hide, and they're scared, and they don't want anybody questioning what they've done. And it's not going to change unless you speak up. Now, there was a question today. There's a lot of debate on why Don Lemon was fired at the exact same time as Tucker Carlson. In my view, I was in broadcasting for 40 years. I think it's happenstance. It's a coincidence. And some people say, well, there's a conspiracy there. There's no conspiracy, folks. You can have a coincidence. There's no comparison between the personalities or the talent of Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson. None at all. The ratings prove that. Don Lemon is on a network that is suffering ratings-wise. His ratings, personally, were worse than the network's. Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, had the #1 show in his time slot. He was the second highest rated show, if I'm correct with this, the second highest show on cable news networks. The second. There's no comparison. Why was Don Lemon fired? Well, because he's a racist. And he made it abundantly clear. And he made everybody on the set feel very uncomfortable. He was interviewing presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, and this is what happened here.
With due respect, I find your explanation reductive and actually insulting, including to black Americans, to say that black people today, compared to 1964, 1865, haven't made progress in part because of the freedoms we secured. And the Second Amendment was
black
part of what secured
hang on,
that
please.
freedom.
I cannot keep a thought if you guys are talking to me in my ear. So hang on one second. So to say that black people, say what you said again.
Black people secured their freedoms after the Civil War. It is a historical fact, Don. Just study it. Only after their Second Amendment rights were secured.
They
That's
were
a
not
fact.
secured their freedoms after the Civil War. That is not, you are discounting Reconstruction. You're discounting a whole host of things that happened after the Civil War when it comes to African Americans, including the whole reason that the Civil Rights Movement happened is because black people did not secure their freedoms after the Civil War, and that things turned around. People tried to change the freedoms that were supposed to
And you know
happen
how they got it?
War
They got their Second Amendment rights, and they actually got the NRA played a big role in that. But today, Don, the
NRA did not play a big role in
absolutely,
that.
they trained
That
black Americans
is
how to use firearms.
That's a lie. That's not. The NRA did not play a big role in
This
that.
is just historical fact.
It's
but
not
Don,
historical fact.
The part that I
Just
find
because you say it's historical fact.
The part that I find
historical
insulting
fact.
is when you say today black Americans don't have those rights after we have gone through civil rights revolution in this country.
You are sitting here telling an African American about the rights and what you find insulting about the way I live, the skin I live in every day.
Here's where you and I have
the
a different
freedoms
point
that
of view.
black and white that black people don't have in this country, and that black people do have.
Well, here's where you and I have a different point of view. I think we should be able to express our views regardless of the color of our skin. We should have this debate
I'm not saying you
without
shouldn't
me
express your
regarding
views,
you as a
but I think
black
it's
man,
insulting that
but
you're
me regarding
sitting
you
here,
as a fellow citizen.
that you're
That's what I
sitting
think we should
here,
see.
whatever ethnicity you are, explaining to me
Whatever ethnicity I am,
about
I'll
what
tell
it's
you.
like to be black.
Whatever
in America.
ethnicity I am, I'll tell you what I am. I'm an Indian American. I'm proud of it. But I think we should have this debate. Black, white doesn't matter.
I think we should have this
on
debate.
the content of the
if you're
ideas.
going to do it, you should do it in an honest way and in a fair way. And what you're doing is not an honest and fair way. Okay?
With-
But we
with-
appreciate you coming on.
With
Thank
due
you for
respect,
that.
Don, I look forward to
Thank you very
continuing
much.
that
I appreciate
conversation.
it. We'll
Thank
continue
you.
the conversation.
Thank you.
You so much.
Thank you, Papa.
We'll talk about China.
Yes, let's talk about
next
China.
time you come back.
Oh, thank you. Much to say on declaring independence from China.
Okay,
Something you
can
can
we
add
move on now, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's Donnie Boy. He's gone. So when Vivek goes back and has a conversation with Poppy, he won't have to worry about Don. I agree with AOC. Deplatforming works. That's a two-way street. Folks, Democrats are on a full court press assault on our Constitution, our republic, and the very fabric of America. Massachusetts Democrat Senator Ed Markey just called today for the resignation of Justice Clarence Thomas. Why? Because they want to get the court back in control. They need to have at least one Republican, one conservative, removed from the court so that they can start pushing through the things that they want. This is Markey's call for Thomas to be removed.
I will say what needs to be said. Clarence Thomas should resign from the Supreme Court of the United States. His reputation is unsalvageable. It is evident that he cannot judge right from wrong, so why should he be judging the country's most important cases on its highest court?
That right there is just one more assault from the Democrats, from the left, from the statist, from the deep state against America as a whole. Never before have we seen so many people coming forward to file lawsuits against anyone who's going to stand up for them, or stand up against them, rather, after 2024. Nobody. They've decided to go on a full court press against all Republicans, against all conservatives, and silencing voices. And if they can't silence your voice, if they can't deplatform, they'll deplatform you, they'll put you in jail. Oh, you don't believe that? Ask the guy who wrote the I can't remember the guy's name, the meme creator that back in 2016 made a meme about Hillary Clinton telling people to vote by mail or to vote by phone the day after the election. He's facing 5 years in prison for election fraud for a joke. And nobody went and voted the next day. Nobody. Now they're going after Clarence Thomas, calling for him to resign. Because he goes in vacations with a rich friend that has the means to fly them. It's no different than if I have the ability to drive to the restaurant with you. I'll drive, that's fine. You got to write that down, let the government know that you rode with a friend. Well, Kramer, he's on a plane. The guy owns a plane. I'll put it this way. There's an old saying, and I agree with it 100%. Having a boat's great. But what's even better is having a buddy who has a boat. Well, that's kind of what Clarence Thomas has done here. He's got a buddy who's got a boat. That's what he goes out on. He doesn't have to maintain it. He has to pay for it. No insurance. Doesn't even have to learn anything about it. He just goes to play with it, to enjoy it. Thank God I got a buddy with a boat, because I don't want one. And Justice Thomas is the latest casualty in this assault on our Constitution, on our republic. It's not going to stop, folks. They're not going to stop. They're going to continue. They're going to continue. But there is a I don't know what you call it, a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a silver lining. And it's this right here. This I've been waiting to do all today. I cannot wait to show you this. This is today's moment of Zen. Let me explain what's going on here. This is going on in Fort Worth, Texas, and there's some sound. There's no sound in this initial video, but there is some sound that comes in. If you watch, there's a protest going on in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the guy with the little flag there, he's going to ease in. There you go with the circle. He's going to come in and spray the group who's done nothing to him with mace, bear spray, and then he's going to walk gingerly back across the street like nothing ever happened. This is what happens when Zen, karma, and fuck around and find out all come together. Now, as you'll notice, the victims have walked away. They've disbanded, right? Meanwhile, the people with the long guns, the people that say they're anti-gun, are there with guns, intimidating people without guns. And you'll see them. Look at him. The camera system, thank God the Dallas-Fort Worth police had this camera system set in place to be able to see what happened, because nobody would believe it. So the police here in just a moment, you'll see this in just a moment, that's arrestee number 1. So you know where it's going. I mean, the police are involved, and here we go. I'll let this follow out. And by the way, you're going to especially enjoy the medic. The medic is going to come save the day.
You come with me real quick? No. Yeah. He's going to come with us. He's right here. That's it. Hey, you need to come with us, but I'm not doing anything. We're going to go get him. Get away. Stop falling. Right here. Hey, you take off running, you're going to get charged with that.
There we go. Arrestee number 2. This is awesome, folks. I can meditate now. Now, here's what I find funny. Listen carefully. He's going to start crying for mommy. Help! Help!
Bring the units over here. Over here. I got to help. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. I got the arm, dude. I got it. Do not reach for that gun. You will get shot if you reach for that gun. Don't reach for that gun. Let go. Let go. Get up. Bring it. Help! Help! Help!
Mommy! 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 Help! Mommy! Help!
Get the pistol. Get the pistol. Pistol.
Now hold on. This isn't it. It gets better. Because we're going to have the Chunky Butt Medic come in here in just a moment. The Chunky Butt Medic is going to come on the scene and try to save the day. I've nicknamed her Chunky Butt Medic. Isn't it good to see karma happen in real time? Don't you love this? The tech that we have today. The cops have got their body cams on. You got the cams in the streets. So you can see policing in action. Okay, here she comes, the Chunky Butt Medic. She's going to get herself into a world of hurt because she doesn't know what get the fuck back means. Here we go.
He's asking for help in their streets. No, fine. We will take care of it later. Back up. What does he need a medic for? What does he need a medic for? Back up. Back up. He's falling for a medic. What does he need a medic for? What does he need a medic for?
What do you need a medic for? Not for long. Arrestee number 3. And by the way, here are their mugshots. Yep. Exactly what you expect. Especially the last one. Hey, Chunky Butt. That courtesy of the Dallas-Fort Worth Police Department. Thank you so much for doing that, guys. We really appreciate it. Folks, I want to leave you with this, that what we're in right now is a battle for our nation, our battle for our nation's soul. Joe Biden said that there was a battle for our nation's soul. He was correct. But it's wrestling it out of their hands. Getting back into the hands of the adults, the sane. Saw a thing today and it showed all of the different sexual genders you can be, all the genders you can be, and all their signs and yada, yada, yada. And at the top, it showed male and female, right? And it said genders. And then everything else was circled. All the others were circled as a mental illness. I believe in that 100%. Because why would Antifa go out of their way, be so gung-ho about fighting for the right of grown men to dance half naked in front of children? I'll put it this way. We are at the end of days in this nation. And I'm not a fatalist. I'm an optimist. I look at everything and say, what's the best that can come out of this? What's the silver lining in this gray cloud? The only hope that we have left at all, in any way, shape, or form, is for you to step up and start making your voice heard. How do you do that? You get a hold of your congressmen, you get a hold of your senators, you get a hold of those people that have control of your life, that are making decisions about your life, and you do not let them rest. You want to find out who your representative is in your state? You want to start buzzing their lines? This is the information. You can find out who your congressional representative is at house.gov, your senatorial representative at senate.gov. And if you want to call the switchboard of the White House, you can do that at 202-456-1414. That's the main line in. If you want to leave a comment, you can do that at 202-456-1111. Again, the switchboard is 202-456-1414. If you want to leave a comment for Joe or anybody else at the White House, you can do that at 202-456-1111. What I would suggest that you do is I suggest that you be very nice when you do it, but very emphatic. Because they're looking for excuses to come get you. So don't leave a threat. Don't be an idiot. Don't be stupid. There's enough of those people out there. I'm trusting that if you're listening to this program that you're not one of those. But that's how you start this process. And you keep that line busy. You dial it time and time again. You want to find out. You want to get in. You want to leave your comment. Be a pest. Then when you find out who your House rep is and who your Senate rep is, do the same to them. But don't stop there. Don't just call their offices. Call the offices of your governor, your state rep, your state senator. Bug them, pester them. Do not stop. Busy up their phone lines. Jam as many emails in there as you can. Hit them hard. Continually hit. Be the squeaky wheel. Because if politicians know one thing, they know that the squeaky wheel is the problem. That's why this trans movement, that's why the LGBTQ movement, and all their different versions, that's why the CRT movement, all these things that you hate in your life these days. And I'm not saying I hate LGBTQ. That's not it at all. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm talking about the militaristic version of those. I've got a ton of gay friends. I was in media my entire life. Trust me. I know I've got a lot of gay conservative friends. But these initiatives, we have to stop. We have to start being the squeaky wheel. We have to stop sitting back and saying, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We have to start acting. And the first way is getting the attention of those that make decisions about your life on a daily basis. Your state rep, your state senator, your city council, the school board, the mayor in your community. If that's too much to ask, if that's too much, if that's a bridge too far, then stop complaining and accept it for what it is. We now live in a dictatorship. I hate to say it that way, but I think that that's really the case. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. It's not a full-blown dictatorship yet because they don't have complete control. We can still communicate. We can still do what we're doing right here. But if they had their druthers, they'd get rid of this capability as well. You can follow us every weeknight at 8 p.m., Monday through Thursday, on Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. Today we were in YouTube. Sometimes we are, sometimes we aren't. Sometimes they let us on. After today's program, who knows? You can also catch me on TikTok if my account is still there at number 86, sitting there. Taking your phone calls as well. We'll do that tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we're just going to take phone calls. So write that down. Tomorrow night, get your questions ready. Get your comments ready. We'll talk tomorrow night at 877-619-3899. And of course, you can catch the CramerSez podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. One last thing is the merch. I was supposed to add this in. We have a new merch store. It's not to pay my bills. It's to help us assist us in the building of the CramerSez app. We're building a brand new app, a communications tool that we think is we think that it's the next wave. You can take a look at what it is at CramerSezApp.com. You can buy merch, CramerSez merch, at CramerSez.com. There's a merch store there, but you have to create an account to get in and all that. If you don't want to do that, here in the next few days, we'll be doing the same exact thing, putting a store up on CramerSezApp.com. The problem is, and I'm asking for help here, if you know how to connect all these things, give me a holler, because I can't get it figured out, and I'm the guy that's been doing that. So if you know how to connect the credit card billing systems along with Printify or one of these WooCommerce things, give me a holler. Syndication at CramerSez.com. Maybe you can help me out because I'm clueless right now. We've got tons of orders sitting there, and I can't get them out the door because the credit cards won't sync up. So anyway, that's what we've got tonight. I appreciate you dropping in. Thanks so much for being here. If you've got anything that you want to tell me or let me know, you can always let me know at syndication at CramerSez.com. We'll be back tomorrow night or as soon as we can. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Get more at CramerSez.com. CramerSez.com.